Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So for today's sketchbook session, I wanted to revisit another way how I used to add some color and just to kind of like spruce up my sketches in a way. And I haven't done this since probably the very beginning of this sketchbook, which I'm not sure if I've actually shown. So let's get my sketchbook kind of set up. I have the binder clips just to help prop up my book open. So we're actually going to be starting off with mechanical pencil. I have my kneaded eraser right here as well. And we're just going to start off right with the, what is it called? Sketches, I guess. Also today I'm going to be drawing Baizhu. I've been in a very Baizhu mood lately and I feel like I never do him justice, so I am going to be sketching him quite a bit. I also forget his snake's name. I don't remember if his name or her name is Changsheng, so or Changsheng? I don't remember. I do apologize. So I'm just gonna refer to her as the snake for them right now. And yeah, we're just gonna sketch out Baizhu with the mechanical pencil. So for the most part, I'm going to be sketching a little bit on the lighter side, and I'm gonna try my best to kind of like set out almost like a layout. And I'm trying my best to remember stuff about his outfit for when I want to draw him digitally. For like the rest of like the iPad drawing series kind of thing that I have going on. But for him, I don't know, I do find him a little bit difficult to draw, so apologies if he looks a little funky here and there. I did do, I think, 3 different sketches, and I think next week's video, like Monday's video, will also be Baizhu, depending on how I separated these videos. I did basically 3 different sessions on 3 different days, and depending on when I upload them was probably going to be depending on when you guys are going to be seeing this. So it might be double Baizhu, yeah, that, or it might be someone else in between, we'll see. But the plan is that I wanted to have kind of like one main Baizhu in the front, and I thought I was going to spend the most time on this, but I think because I took a little bit of a break from the middle one, I didn't remember what I was going for, and a lot of his details kind of got lost. So yeah, I don't know. I like looking at the sketch right now, I actually really like it, besides the fact that I was struggling with that hand, by the way. But yeah, sketch-wise, I actually really liked it until I started to fiddle with the, I think, color alongside with, we are going to be darkening up the sketch a little bit more with the pencil. But like I said, I kind of wanted to figure out a little bit of a layout, and this layout's pretty similar to the other ones I've done in my sketchbook, so kind of like one more upright, kind of forward and kind of just like simple pose for the first one, and then everything else would be just filling out the space around him. And I usually like to include one that's maybe a little bit more up close, or I would do maybe something that would show more of the outfit or something of that sort. So for the one on the side right here, I decided to go with more of an up close part of his face. Now I did have a different kind of like pose for the hand and everything in mind, but I don't know why I didn't go with it. I stuck with something very simple, and it still looks very weird just because his neck is kind of gone and I threw his shoulder right there. So I don't know, the posing is just a little bit awkward. And even for this one, I actually really like the sketch for this one. I think it just looks kind of cute, but I also butcher it a little bit later. But I think I mentioned in like a previous sketchbook video that I wanted to treat the sketchbook a little bit more no pressure again, because I am trying my best to power through the sketchbook so I don't feel too pressured to be precious with the paper that feels a little bit more higher quality, if that makes sense. I feel like because I've been using sketchbooks that had notebook paper for like a little bit of a while, I guess they were notebooks, maybe that's why, but I didn't treat those ones as precious because there's so many pages and the paper is very thin, so like I would go through them, or I didn't really care what I scribbled. But sometimes when I work on the sketchbook, I do feel the pressure of like, am I wasting the paper if I only do like a few scratches and scribbles here and there and then flipping the page? Like, I don't know if it's just worth it. But I feel like that's also like the idea of like the price point too, because I also think about like just buying really plain sketchbooks for cheap and then just using them. But right now, because I have so many of my own notebooks, that's probably what I'm gonna stick with for the most part. And I'm gonna be a little bit hesitant buying new sketchbooks probably in the future if this is gonna become a reoccurring problem. But I think it's also because even my previous notebooks, I think all the mediums that I like to work with work well in that particular notebook anyways, so it's not like this paper can handle other mediums more so than my other usual sketchbooks that I usually like to use. But this one does have thicker paper, so it just feels nicer to add wet mediums to without it buckling like crazy. So I do like that, and markers look really nice on it, so that's another plus. For the sketching session though, so once I kind of had the layout for what I wanted Baizhu to do for each one, I decided to go ahead and start to darken up some of the lines that I wanted to stand out, and hopefully trying to get some of the detail in. But I didn't do that very, like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, sometimes when I sketch very freely, and then sometimes when I get down to the part where I'm kind of doing like tight lines and stuff and just trying to make things look really clear, there's a lot of things I feel like I skimp out on just because I don't feel like finishing it. And I feel like at that point I should have just stopped the sketching session or just started to add color or whatever it needs to have, rather than trying to push myself all the time to make sure that it looks more finished. But I don't know. I think there's like a good balance I need of both, because I don't want to stop too early or too prematurely, so that I don't, maybe I'll never find out that I actually really like this method, or I really like the sketches more than I would have if I finished it compared to if I stopped earlier. But yeah, see, you can see like I wasn't really paying attention when I was sketching, so there's like things I had to readjust or things I was a little bit confused of. So I was trying my best to kind of figure it out during this portion. But you'll see, like, after we add some color to the spread, I'm going to be doing the lines once again. So the method I'm doing is a little bit tedious, and I'll just mention it now, since I don't know what else to talk about during the pencil phase, because it's just pencil. I'm just darkening up the lines that I've been doing already. But I am going to be adding watercolor as kind of like my method of adding a little bit of value and some splashes of color here and there for the spread. But after that, I'm going to be using a black ballpoint pen to kind of push the lines and make them stand out a little bit more. And I've done this with like more simple doodles of Oneul in the beginning of my sketchbook, and I actually really liked it because I do like how this paper takes watercolor for the most part, as long as I don't get a lot of like oils from my hand onto the paper. Usually the paper handles the watercolor quite nicely, and it dries in a particular way that looks kind of nice. Let me take a quick look so I feel like I know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I don't know. In a sense, if you do get a nice wash, it kind of looks almost like marker in a sense. But there's a little bit more freedom that I have, right? Being able to feather out the edges a little bit, or if I want to blend some colors together and have more of that watercolor look where it's kind of more like splotchy, and then it kind of dries with like a hard edge and stuff, which I really like about watercolors too, but I feel like I never utilize it very nicely. But yeah, we're starting here with the watercolor. So the reason why I wanted to have the lines a little bit darker is just because I wanted to make sure that I was placing the watercolor a little bit more cleanly. But I don't think me darkening up the lines with the pencil the second time was like a super necessary part. But I think it's like partially because I wasn't 100% sold that I was gonna paint everything. Maybe I was just gonna sketch everything in, so I was gonna do all the values and the form and all that with just graphite. So I think that was kind of me having a little bit of uncertainty here and there. Yeah, I think for the most part, the only one that I kind of like is the center one. The one on the left kind of got derpy, and the one on the right I gave up quite quickly. I stopped adding so much like warmth to his face, so he looks kind of dead, and I just feel like everything on that one just looks super pale, so I don't really like it. I definitely put the most effort in the front center one, especially during the coloring portion alongside when I do the line again with the ballpoint pen. So yeah, but I do like this method. I do think it needs the ballpoint pen, or at least for me, because I do like having the bolder lines with the kind of pale-ish washes of the watercolor. I think it does look nice, and I do think that sometimes my pencil lines do get a little bit lost when I use watercolor like this, because I'm not paying attention to too much whether or not the lines can stand out, and I'm just pushing the values with the watercolor regardless. But there are some areas that I feel like do get a little bit lost and covered if I don't use the black ballpoint pen afterwards. So you'll probably see what I mean once we get to there. Also, apologies for the bunch of angle changes that I have while working on this piece. So when I was working on this, I wanted to sketch with my book flat down, but it just didn't work. There was this I don't know, it's just awkward for me to sketch directly on the desk nowadays. I always prop the book up, like I have to, I feel like. So I did bring out like the little mesh wire rack that I usually use, but I don't like using it when I paint because it pulls the water all the way down sometimes, which you can use to your advantage, but I don't really like it. Sometimes when I use more wet washes, I don't want it to pool in one area and that area is like completely dark compared to a different area. So yeah, I don't remember if when I work with the ballpoint pen I will work vertically or I'll be working like fully flat. Also, I don't know how to draw snakes. I don't mind Changshan's, oh, I shouldn't call her that, the snake's face, I guess. I don't know if that's her name. Yeah, but for the snake, I like the face on the one in the middle. I gave up on the one on the right. I'm pretty sure I've drawn snake before too, and I knew how to draw the head shape alongside with the body, but the one on the right just looks so derpy. I think it's also because I made the eye shape incorrect and the nose portion incorrect, so it looks more like a raindrop face shape, and it just looks kind of funny. But yeah, you can see here is when I feel like I gave up on adding color to this one. I left it super pale, and I kind of wish I didn't. Maybe I should have done like more shadows so that it looks like he's like underneath like a canopy of tree leaves or something. It would look kind of nice to put him in a little bit of darkness, because once I added in like the pen, it really makes him look super pale. Yeah, I don't know if it's also because like my color palette and my water was also getting very muddy. I think sometimes when I get into watercolor and I'm not doing like an actual proper piece, I'm very lazy when it comes to like washing my brush or changing out my water or like making sure that things are like pristine and clean to make sure that there's no I guess like contamination of the pigments into one another. But yeah. Oh, okay, so here is when after the whole page is kind of dried, I have the Pentel RSVP in fine, and I have a blue one, a purple one, and a black one. I'm using black today, and this is kind of my favorite ballpoint pen when it terms of like sketching. I do think that it requires me to use a lot more pressure compared to some other ballpoint pens that probably dispense like a lot more ink, but this one dispenses like a very thin line of ink, and it's also just feels a lot closer to me working with like a mechanical pencil, so that's why it's easy for me to follow my lines. I can darken up the same way how I do with my pencil work, so that's why it's usually the one I use whenever I sketch in the sketchbook and stuff. It's just very comfortable to use for me. But if I ever want to have like darker areas or I need to kind of push the value a lot more, I do have to press quite a bit harder or go over the area several times to get that value or that darkness that I want. Because I know some other ballpoint pens dispense quite a bit of ink and they get like a nice thick black line like right off the bat upon first use kind of thing. But I do like having the ability to kind of mess with the values depending on how much pressure I use or like how many times I go over it over and over again. I think it's like similar to how I like the Right Boru pen on Clip Studio Paint for that reason, because it does mimic an actual ballpoint pen where you go over an area, it gets darker. It's very mechanical pencil-esque because you can kind of build up the value and it's kind of like a sharp point. But I really like this method of sketching from time to time. I don't know actually, I was gonna say I don't know why I don't do it that frequently. I actually do know why. Usually when I sit down to do like painting sessions, I usually don't paint my sketches like this unless I'm doing like a full painting session. And I feel like these ones, for the most part, I would probably think they would go a little bit quicker. So maybe I should try to see if I can find my more portable looking watercolor cases and see what colors I have, and I can bring that around with me if I ever go somewhere and I want to draw in my sketchbook. Like, because I think this is a fun way to add color in a way, because like you kind of have an infinite amount of colors for the most part if you have, like, depending on your paints that you have. So you don't have to worry about carrying, like, you know, I don't need to carry 10 markers to draw one character. I don't have to carry 5 different pencil crayons to color one character, kind of thing, right? But there is something I would like to try to do, so I'll see if I can do it for probably not next week, probably the week after next week. And if I do end up doing it, I'll talk about why I decided to do it and like what video inspired me to do it and stuff, because I found it very interesting and I want to see if I can try out the technique. So yeah, here's Baizhu. I didn't finish the one in the center completely, but I think it's kind of fun to do once in a while, and it kind of brings a lot of focus to the faces. Oh, these are the Oneul ones that I did, and I think they look kind of cute because they have light little washes here and there, and their hair looks really pretty. But yeah, here is the little sketches for today's sketchbook session. I'm going to turn over the page and set up for next time, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!